We implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which shall greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen. I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move to any public comment on any item on the agenda tonight. If you have any public comment, please come forward, state your name, address, and what you're speaking on. Seeing none, we'll move on to items not addressed on the agenda tonight. Clerk, do we have one to add, or do I go to you? Yeah. Okay, Tay.
Yeah, and there's no line item on our agenda, but we just are inserting a special item that came on board today. So finding of existing emergency to permit suspension of the rules to allow communication number 2022-90 to be added to the February 23rd, 2022 special meeting agenda. In accordance with the provisions of Section 6 of Rule 6 of the Rules of Business of the Council of Commissioners of the City and County of Butte-Silver, State of Montana, the Council hereby finds that an emergency condition exists which requires that the Council rules be suspended to allow communication 2022-90 to be added to the agenda of the February 23rd special regular meeting of the Council. The reason for this suspension is as follows. Communication number 2022-90 is a communication from Clerk and Recorder Linda Sager-Joyce requesting authorization to apply for Help America Vote Act, HAVA, election funds from the Montana Secretary of State Office. This grant would be used to add additional staff and equipment to allow Butte-Silver to run the primary and general election in both the existing Montana Votes and the new Elect Montana voter databases simultaneously. Should this grant be received, the additional staff would be required to start on March 14th, 2022. In order to have sufficient time to publish for and hold a public hearing regarding this unanticipated revenue, Ms. Sager-Joyce is requesting this matter be added to tonight's special regular meeting council agenda. So at this time, I would move to approve the suspension of the rules to consider placing communication number 2022-90 on the agenda at the February 23rd, 2022 special regular meeting for action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to place communication number 2022-90 on tonight's agenda. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving to call on the special meeting, J.P. Gallagher, Chief Executive, is calling for a special meeting of the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners for Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022 at 7:30 p.m., preceding the Committee of the Whole meeting in the Council Chambers, Room 312. The purpose of the meeting will be to authorize the Public Works Department to submit a water project proposal to the Nature Conservancy for funding to assist with construction of improvements to the Molten Dam number 1. So with this, do I go to Commissioner? Oh, can we have Jim Keenan come up, give a report? Yep, right there. And then just push the button on the bottom there and the
little red light will
turn on. Yep.
Is that working?
That works.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioners. The reason for the special meeting tonight, well, thank you first for having the special meeting, but the reason for it is just this past Friday before last, I guess it was February 14th, the Executive Director of the Big Hole Watershed Committee connected us with Sierra Harris, the Freshwater Conservation Project Manager for the Montana chapter of the Nature Conservancy. The Nature Conservancy's Global Water Team had reached out to her looking for projects in the Upper Clark Fork Butte area that are focused on improving water storage and drought resiliency. They're looking for projects that provide a volumetric water benefit and are currently underway or in the planning stages. So the Molten Dam seemed like a perfect fit for the program. The catch was that the project proposals are due tomorrow. So that's the reason that we requested the special meeting. So after getting together with the folks from the Finance and Budget Department and discussing the opportunity, everybody felt like it was an opportunity worth pursuing. So with your approval, we'll go ahead and submit that proposal to the Nature Conservancy tomorrow.
Thanks, Mr. Keenan. Do commissioners have any questions of Jim? Seeing none?
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we move on to communication number 2022-80. Jim Keenan, Chief Water Operator, requesting special meeting to authorize the Public Works Department to submit a water project proposal to the Nature Conservancy for funding to assist with construction of improvements to the Molten Dam Number 1 in the amount of $200,000. Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to authorize the Public Works Department to submit a water project proposal for the funding to assist with the construction of improvements to Molten Dam Number 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the submission of communication number 2022-80. Is there anything on the question? Okay, Commissioner Shaw.
And place on file.
place on
Thank you,
file.
Eileen.
Yeah, and placed on file. Would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to communication number 2022-90. Commissioner Shaw, do we need to read the
Thanks.
suspension of the rules, or how do?
I did. Now we can move to approve it. I don't know if
Okay.
you'd like to call
Okay,
on.
I'll read the communication number. Okay, so this is, the reason for this suspension, communication number 2022-90 is a communication from clerk and recorder Linda Sager Joyce requesting authorization to apply for the Help America Vote Act election funds from the Montana Secretary of State office. Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I would move to approve the communication 2022-90 and place it on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place on file. Do commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive. What is the amount?
Linda, Ms. Sager Joyce, could you answer that question for us?
Good evening, thanks for having me. I'm Linda Sager Joyce, Clerk and Recorder for Butte-Silver. The amount of the grant for this fiscal year is $34,267, and next year for the general election will be $33,696.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sager Joyce. Any other questions of the commissioners? Seeing none, could commissioners please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. That concludes the special meeting for tonight. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
Clerk, please let me know when you're ready.
There are 10 present and 1 presiding. 1 absent.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight to the committee, the whole meeting agenda, Wednesday, February 23rd, and thankfully, we still have the same people here we had before. We will forego the prayer and the pledge. At this time, is there any public comment on tonight's agenda, the committee of the whole, on anything on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Report of the chair, well, I don't really have anything to report, just stay warm. I actually wore a sweater tonight. Moving along to Section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentations. We have one presentation. This is communication number 2022-61. Danette Gleason, Finance and Budget Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization for a presentation on February 23rd, 2022, to present the fiscal year 2021 audit findings and annual financial report. Director Danette.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, for the record, I'm Danette Gleason, the Finance and Budget Director for Butte-Silver. With me here tonight to do this presentation is the lead partner from Newland & Company, Pat Burt, if Pat, you want to come up. And then I also have Karen Hassler, the Assistant Finance and Budget Director, and Wendy McGrath, the Auditor. Lori Patrick is also usually in attendance at these meetings, but she had a personal commitment and wasn't able to be here tonight. She did say if you had any questions, you could follow up with her later after. So to begin with, I will start with just a basic financial summary and let you know the handouts that we gave to you tonight. The first one is just the basic financial statements and the MD&A. That's this little one here. This is actually more like 355 pages long, but I'm just giving you the summary pages, and probably if I was sitting in your chair, the first things I would go to would be the MD&A that's in the front, and then also the basic financial statements. The second packet that we gave you is the Independent Auditors Report that also contains the summary of our audit findings. Just some highlights for the financial report and a very, very high summary level report is that the overall position of the local government and performance was very stable. Many areas were improving on the revenue side and cost containment within the expenditures. This demonstrates the fiscal responsibility of the elected officials, the department heads, and the employees across the government. So very good to report, especially in the very difficult times that we've had in the last couple years. And I know we all kind of get sick of talking about COVID and whatnot, but really this government has worked really, really hard for the citizens of this community. Some financial highlights on the government-wide statements. If you turn to page 75 and 76, that's the government-wide financial statements. They're also summarized within the MD&A, which is the first written section. The net position of the government-wide, the total government-wide, increased by 8.73%. That was a $23.3 million increase to $291,046,472. Page 36 of the MD&A also shows the 10-year history. So I'm kind of going fast through some of these highlights. If you just wanted to jot down some of these pages, they might help you with future referencing. The current ratio, which measures the liquidity of the local government, is 8.58 to 1, which is very good. It compares the actual current assets to our current liabilities. So what it's looking at is the government entirely, how we could meet our current liabilities with current assets, and so we could do that 8.58 times, so very good. In the governmental activities, which is the funds that contain like the general fund, special revenue funds, which are grant funds, the debt service funds, which are our tax-supported funds that pay our debt, and then in the capital improvement funds, that's on page 77 to 85. Within the governmental activities, net position increased by $21.9 million. A big contributor to this was the grant revenue, which increased by over 36%. This does include $11 million related to a lot of the COVID funding. 4.6 was for CARES Act funding, and 7.8 million was for the ARPA grant funding. It also contains grant revenue for the TIFID, which is the EDA grant for the rail spur development, a lot of the other different COVID-related grants that the health department received as well. So a big increase in our grant revenue. Property tax revenue stayed fairly stable from year to year. It's about a 1% increase. It is the largest revenue source within the general government funds. Governmental funds, and it's around $37 million. That also includes the Economic Development District tax revenue. On the expenditure side in the governmental activities, it increased about $5.8 million. The general government decreased by $821,000, so about a 4% increase within those expenditures. General government expenditures relate to administrative functions, so Chief Executive's Office, Finance and Budget Department, County Attorneys, the Planning Department, those more administrative type departments. The increase was within the Public Safety Department, which is law enforcement and fire, where we saw a $2.7 million increase in that area. And the Public Works Department increased by $1.1 million. The Public Safety Department represents about 31% of the general governmental funds, and the Public Works Department represents about 14%. And when we talk about Public Works Department within the governmental activities, we're talking about the funds related to the Road Department, Parks Department. We're not talking about the major enterprise funds such as the Water Division or the Metro Sewer, Stormwater, Landfill, those particular funds. So in all, though, at the end of the day, revenues still exceeded expenditures by $21 million in the governmental funds. Moving on to the business type activities, that is inclusive of the Water Division, the Metro Sewer Division, Landfill, Stormwater, Silver Lake, Business Development. Grab them. Those, the net position increased by $1.5 million to $115,208,000 over the prior year. In fiscal year 20, the net position actually decreased by $635,000, so a significant gain in that area. The major enterprise funds can be found also on page 75 and 76, labeled as the business type activities. In more detail, they begin on page 86. In those basic financial statements for the enterprise funds, we only report out the major enterprise funds, which is the Water Division, Metro Sewer, and the Landfill, Solid Waste Division. Overall, in the Water Division, there was an increase of $2.6 million in net position. Metro Sewer decreased by $729,000, which was a 4% decrease, and solid waste decreased by 2% at $152,000. So these are areas when we see decreases in net position are definitely factors that we start to consider in looking at other analysis for potential rate increases further down the road, such as we have a tool that you'll see on page 45 that looks at how much of expenditures are covered, or how much charges of services are covering those expenditures. And overall, within these divisions, 94% is. But if you go individual, you'll see the reduction in the Metro Sewer and in the Solid Waste Division. So those will be areas that we will definitely be more focusing on as we move through the budget process. As we move on to the fund level, so what I have presented to you in the basic financial statements is more of the summary of the financial statements. We also do fund level financial reporting, which is considered more supplementary, with the exception of the general fund. The general fund is always a major fund. It's the largest single fund of the local government. The fund balance within the general fund increased by 21%, which was a $2 million increase. Also significant to report is there is a $10 million unassigned balance. So that means $10 million can help support continued operations without a lot of restrictions on the dollars. Within the general fund, revenues increased by 7.39%, or $2.4 million, and expenditures decreased by $25,000, a little less than 1%. Also, other major funds that we report in the basic financial statements is the Ramsey-Tiffin. The most of the expenditures and activity you'll see in the Ramsey-Tiffin relates to the EDA grant and the rail spur development out there for fiscal year 21. And then also we report the ARCO Redevelopment Trust Fund, and that activity that you see happening in there is the grant-related activity for the year through the SARTA board. And for the most part, year after year, the investment activity within the SARTA program has covered those expenditures, so we really have not seen any significant decrease at all in the net position, which is very successful for that particular fund. The major funds are further described within the MD&A beginning on page 51. Another major category that we report out is our capital assets. That's discussed on page 61 of the MD&A, and there's significant more detail in our notes of our financial statements. So I'd be misleading to tell you that this is the most important part, because there's also our notes to our financial statements that can give you further details of what's happening. Like, for example, in the capital asset section, it gives you a lot more different increases and decreases upon the different types of classes of capital assets. But within our capital assets, we invested a little over $23.5 million last year in assets. And another section is important that we review and auditors really dive into is the long-term debt section. Our debt outstanding for the year was on June 30th was $50.7 million compared to $56 million in fiscal year 2020. Of this debt outstanding, $13.6 million was in general obligation debt, meaning that's the voter-approved debt or debt that is paid by tax-supported funds. $10.5 million is tax-supported or tax increment financing supported debt, and $26.6 million is revenue bonds that relates more significant to the metro upgrades. The remaining GO bond capacity, which is how much more bonding are we allowed to do as a local government on our voter-approved side, is 84% remaining, so we have about $65 million of debt capacity remaining. I always like to point out too, as we're going through the financial statements, if you go back to the consolidated statement and you look at the page 75 and 76, you'll see that we report a significant net pension liability. And I bring this up every year. We are required by GASB accounting standards, and then also it's passed down from the state of Montana, from the MPERA, which relates to every one of the pension reports or pension reporting entities. So we have PERS, we have MPRS, which is the police, we have FERS, which is the fire, and we have SRS, which is the sheriff and some of the detention officers. So, and we also have TRS because we have one, we have a superintendent of schools that's in TRS. So we actually have reporting requirements for every single one of the pensions. So if you do go to the notes, you will see about 45 pages of information related to these pensions. And we are obligated to report in this financial statements $38.3 million. This is an unfunded pension liability. So it really is something we just have to put on the face. It actually looks like we have lower net position and fund balance on our financial statements than we really do have, but it's just a requirement. So if you looked at our net position, it'd be $329 million compared to $291 million if we were able to not have to report that 38.3 that's unfunded. So again, it's just kind of one of those GASB standards that we have to report out. It never is or has been an issue with any of our bonding capacity. I think all the underwriters and everyone fully understands that large significant dollar amount there is not something that we were going to have to go pay off tomorrow. And so it's just a financial statement adjustment that's required every year. So in conclusion, I would focus reading through the MD&A and the notes of the financial statements to get more an in-depth view. Always our office is available. Myself, Karen Hassler, Lucy Hansen, and we're also training some others in our department as well, but for the most part, we can all answer any of the questions related to the financial statements. So once you digest all this information, please feel free to ask any questions. And then I didn't know, Madam Chair, if you wanted to take questions now, or if you wanted to wait for the auditors to give our findings in our opinion letters.
I would ask for any questions for Danette, but what she's just talked about, and then we'll go on to Mr. Burt here. Okay? All right. Thank you, Mr. Burt.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. My name's Patrick Burt. I'm a shareholder in Newland and Company. I've actually performed this audit for a number of years. I've been the partner in charge for a fairly significant number, but not for our entire term as your auditors. What I have in front of you is the second packet, which is our independent auditors report on the financial statements of Butte-Silver Bow. That's for the year ended June 30th, 2021. Let me back up a little bit. These are page numbered to correspond with the audit report, so I will just go front to back on the reports because, as you can see, my report starts on page 18. But What you have in front of you is our independent auditors report. It details management's responsibilities, auditors' responsibilities related to the audit, certain procedures that we have performed, and then if you turn the page, the next page is our audit opinion, and this is what we call an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion, and in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly the financial position, its major funds, remaining aggregate fund information, and changes in financial information and cash flows for the year ended June 30th, 2021. That is what we call an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. As I believe most of you are aware, the Butte-Silver Bow submits these financial statements at the end of each year to the GFOA, which is the highest level of government reporting. So these are an unqualified opinion for that government reporting standard. We also discuss other matters, which are other schedules that are included in the financial statements. These are required supplementary information. And we also discuss that in our paragraph. We also discuss other information, which is our schedule of budgetary comparisons, our combining funds. And then for this particular area, the important area is a schedule of expenditures of federal awards. And again, I believe, as you're aware, the total dollars you receive for federal awards increased significantly for the year ended June 30, 2021, and we're looking at probably a 3 to 4 year significant increase in the federal dollars. As a result of that increase, your audit requirements increase also. So we actually have, we perform our audits based upon major programs. Just about each and every one of these would qualify as a major program, which is expenditures in excess of $750,000. And for that reason, we're required to do additional procedures to be in compliance with federal government auditing standards. So again, our opinion on that is also unmodified, meaning that the federal expenditures and revenues are fairly stated for the year ended. The next page is, if you just flip, is headed Independent Auditors Report on Internal Control over Financial Reporting and Compliance in accordance with government auditing standards. This is again related to specific procedures we're required to do and concerning our review of internal controls over financial reporting, and if there are deficiencies, and we do have one comment on there, we're required to report on those deficiencies. We have material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, and other matters. And for the year ended June 30, 2021, we are actually down to just one significant deficiency that I'll discuss later on for the year. Last year, I believe we had 4 significant deficiencies. So you're seeing fewer comments, mostly in part due to Butte-Silver Bow is required to respond to these to the state of Montana on what their procedures are responding to our audit comments. And there were some significant changes, mostly in internal controls and segregation of duties, that were made during this last fiscal year to eliminate some of these comments have been multi-year. All large governments have a problem with what we call segregation of duties. And I don't think you'll ever eliminate that comment, but we were able to reduce our comments by actually 4 outside agencies that collect cash on behalf of the district. So, in my view, a significant improvement on internal controls on a year-to-year basis. This report is on compliance, and outside of the significant deficiencies, we found no issues related to compliance. That's governmental compliance. The next page, it's actually headed page 243, is our separate report, and this report is related to our specific audit work on major federal programs. The report is headed, Report on Compliance for each major program on internal controls over compliance required by uniform guidance. That's the federal government standard that we're required to audit under, and then when you receive federal grants, you're required to follow those federal guidance and procedures. Again, this is what we call an unmodified opinion on this report. We discuss our management responsibilities, our auditor's responsibilities, and our opinions on each major program. And as I said before, major programs are programs that have expenditures in excess of $750,000. The only finding we had is the same finding, 2021-001, on internal controls at offices outside the treasurer's office. So I will go right to that. It's headed under the heading Auditor's Comments and Prior Report Recommendations. And that's finding 2021-001, internal controls in offices outside the treasurer's office. It's headed under Auditor's Comments, Significant Deficiencies. This report, again, has been a long time finding on ours. You know, there's several reasons for that, and one of the main reasons, most all governments have that, is there's certain areas that, short of hiring 2 or 3 staff members for each additional area, you lack segregation of duties in those areas, and you try and do what we call compensating controls. So what we noted during our audit was a lack of segregation of duties. We're down to actually 3 outside offices: Parking Commission, Civic Center, and Landfill. And as I said before, we were able to eliminate, Butte-Silver was able to eliminate, based upon our audit procedures, we did not have comments on the other outside offices that we previously, for the Justice of the Peace, the City Court, the Clerk of the Court was new, but the JPs in the City Court, those comments have been on there for a number of years. So, you know, part of it was due to implementation of the full court system at those offices, and then also, a real, push from the budget office, essentially, and with the help of the JPs and Jerome McCarthy, to implement procedures to help eliminate these findings. So again, in my view, a very significant improvement on internal controls for the year. The next finding we have is finding 2021-002. This also has actually been an area that we generally have comments on as related to timesheets. Now, these are actually down from previous years, but during our examination, we actually look at timesheets and timesheet approvals, and we noted numerous instances where employee timesheets did not contain supervisor signature approving hours worked. In addition, we noted several instances where employee timesheets were signed either prior to the end of the reporting period or after payroll checks had been issued. Strong internal control dictates that payroll must be properly reviewed and approved prior to issuance of reports. We recommend that Butte-Silver implement proper payroll approval procedures, that all timesheets be signed and approved, verifying actual hours. Any questions, comments on our 2 findings?
Any questions from the council members to Mr. Burt at this point? Seeing none, go ahead.
Okay. The next that I would point out, and again, more to what I discussed previously, is prior report recommendations, which is at the end. As you can see, our prior comments, we actually had 4 prior comments in the previous year. 1 was partially implemented, which is the internal controls in offices outside the treasurer, and the other 3 were actually implemented. So that means that the Butte-Silver management implemented procedures to eliminate those comments that we found in previous years. And just to be aware, what we do is specifically, when we do perform our audits, we actually go to the departments that had problems in the past to ensure, you know, are there any changes, or have they implemented procedures to change those? So again, very positive. Of the 4 comments we had, 1 was partially implemented, and the other 3 were implemented. So any questions, comments? I will turn over to Danette, who will, one of the procedures is the final letter that you have in front of you is required by the state of Montana to the Department of Administration. Local governments are required to actually discuss the comments and then also provide, which becomes part of our audit report, a management response on how they are going to deal with our audit comments. And I'll turn this over to Danette because management is required to do this. It's not, we don't draft the response. We provide the information to management and they draft the responses.
Okay, there are no further questions. Mrs. Gleason.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, as you heard Pat state, we did have a very successful audit, but we still have work ahead of us. In the first comment, the 2021-001 on internal controls, we did significantly reduce that. We still have more work. I have to credit a lot of this work has been done and continues to be done every month by Wendy McGrath, our auditor, Lori Patrick, our treasurer, and then in my office, Karen Hassler and Lucy Hanson fill in to help segregate and to have taken on additional roles. For example, Wendy reviews every single month a lot of she does review every month the bank statements and then the reports that come out of the full court system for the courts. So that's how they were eliminated from these particular audit findings. In our department, Karen and Lucy audit like the canteen and the detention fund accounts. They audit the Civic Center activity. They audit Parks and Rec. You don't see swimming pool road up here. You don't see, and we collect a lot of cash in outside offices. And our office takes on the role of, and including with the assistance of Lori Patrick and Wendy McGrath, making sure that we have segregation of duties between the collections at the swimming pool, the collections at the golf course, all these other different areas. So they've done a lot of great work over the years. We do feel confident that we can potentially remove the comments related to the parking commission and the landfill. We will work with the auditors to do some additional segregation of duties, potentially eliminating them. The Civic Center is going to be a different ball for us. Really, when that comes down to that particular one, the segregation of duties would just require us to hire another staff person. And when we look at that feasibility of another staff person to come in and just sit all day, because they can't do the collections, they could only do adjustments and stuff, it's just potentially not feasible. So our focus right now is parking and landfill. Not that we won't still be working on the Civic Center, but for this year, it's going to be parking and the landfill. And we've also met, Chief Executive Gallagher, myself, and Pat Burt have already met with Ed Randall, and he's very much aware of some changes, and he implemented those changes that day related to adjustments and logins and some different things for segregation of duties. So I'm really confident we'll get those removed. And we also, in our comment and management responses, the treasurer and the auditor also will be looking at doing some additional training throughout the local government, similar to what they've done in the past. And then on our internal control, I should also add, we've also done a lot of work on the IT side in this area for segregation of duties. That's why you have to have the little extra double pass, to log in, the dual authenticity or whatever it's called, to authorize yourself to go in. So that's like certain controls that we've put in place. And then we're also using a lot of different password protection. These are only things that we can do to try to tell people what to do. If they choose to share their password, which is against our policy, which should elevate to some type of an HR consequence, that's something we can't control, but it's something that gets audited. I can tell you that Pat goes to their departments and asks how you log on to your computer. And what do you do when you log on? And where are your passwords? They're not laying on your desk so anybody can walk in your office and log in onto your computer. So a lot of work has been done in that area, also with the IT. On the second comment, the 2021-002, like Pat had indicated, this comes on and off as audit comments. It is extremely frustrating for our department that we see this. We do have a policy in place, policy 205 for pay period and timesheet recording. It clearly states how your timesheet should be entered, when they should be put in to the payroll department, who signs, and how that process should take place. Again, another element that we have to, again, reach back out to the departments. Unfortunately, this time it wasn't a focus on 2 departments like it generally is. It was across a few other departments that we will be working with to try to get this corrected. We have explored some electronic timekeeping, but that's not going to change an issue that we have here, because at the end of the day, the person still has to account for their time and still has to load it and still has to, basically, they're sitting down at the computer loading it and hitting their authorization. That's their entry. And, you know, this is really significant. It may not sound significant, but this is the exact comment that we got called on from, and I think I've said this before to you, from the Attorney General's office when we were trying to get some WARDA grants, some Department of Defense grants that we are usually very successful with for Metro and Water Division. And they called us and asked us about our controls and how they were improved. And it had nothing to do with the Public Works Department at that time. It was another area. And so these type of comments rise and they elevate to other departments. The last time, I will tell you, last fiscal year, we got a call from the Department of Transportation related to a health department receivable reconciliation. So they do look at these comments, and so we do take them very seriously, and we will be asking for some assistance from other departments with compliance with this payroll timekeeping and compliance with policy 205. I think it's gonna take maybe the county attorney, who's kind of smiling at me, and the chief executive to help us, and the HR department, because obviously we don't make a lot of headway sometimes. We can't not pay the person. My theory was, if it's not done right, we're not going to pay them. But we've been told that's not an option for us. And so I would rather just reject the timesheet and send it back to the department and then go from there. But we were told that we can't do that. So I think that this will be an area that will take a lot of work to correct, whether we go electronic timesheet or we're still doing hand timesheet. It's something that this local government has to address. So I think overall we did a super, the whole government did a very good job with the audit. I can't say enough, we didn't talk a lot about the single audit that takes place. The single audit is prepared by Karen Hassler in our department. Karen and Lucy work a lot of hours on grant reporting to make sure that our grants are reported accurately, correctly. We work with a lot of different departments every single quarter. It's not something we do once a week, or something we do once a year. This is a continual process for our department, and they do an exceptional job with it. Also wanted to say, again, like we talked about on the internal controls, the assistance that's been, and the cooperation that's been happening since Wendy McGrath has become auditor and Lori Patrick treasurer, we've been really able to accomplish a lot in the internal control side. And then just wanted to thank the council, the departments, and of course, our auditors for all the support on the audit, and we just hope that we continue to improve.
Thank you, Danette. Any questions for either Pat or Commissioner O'Neill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Pat, and thanks, Danette. Just commenting, thank all the greats. The 8 times the coverage, I'd love to give loans, if I could, to the county. Be an easy thing. We have a lot of money we can spend, it seems like. Joking when I say that. Mainly paving some streets in my area. That'd be great. Seems like there's plenty of money, so if we'd make that happen. Mark, you can hear that. But in all seriousness, the one thing that I know this payroll thing was on the last report we had. I struggle with it because we all work for, we all love our jobs, I know, but I know one of my main reasons I made some bad decisions. I bought things I have to work. I just really think that this is a simple thing that through the processes, especially in my opinion, and through government, like you have to have this properly done. And to me, it's a simple thing that just, you know, just makes me go crazy in theory, because if you want to get paid, you need the proper stuff. It's pretty simple. I just hope that we could correct that. And I know you guys do a great job. I mean, I hate to be negative on it, but I mean, it just shouldn't be on there. There's no reason for it. It reminds me of the gas card thing as I go into that. Like, again, if our employees don't understand the difference between 91 and 87, I mean, if their debit card was out, they understand, and that one still is one that makes me crazy. And it's all these little tiny things that make big things. Like, if you're commenting back on saying that you've gotten calls and it could affect other things, it's not cool, and it's like the easiest thing that needs to happen. So yeah, don't pay them, send it back, they'll get it signed, they'll do it one time, it'll be signed, right? It'll be simple.
Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Burt, thank you for being here, and Danette, thank you. You know, if it's excited to be exciting about an audit, I don't know if you can say that or not, but there has been some changes. I'm the one that has sat through a lot of these over the years, and it's obviously that, you know, you can see the hard work that you're putting into it to make the changes from year to year. So thank you, Danette.
Commissioner Callahan.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if this is a question for Danette or Pat. You know, since I've been on the council, this check thing's been a problem, you know, the time clock. We had mentioned time clocks back when I first got on here. Would that be an answer to help fix this problem, or?
What Butte-Silver has looked at is electronic approval. You know, I'm not sure what the status of that is, but that has some built-in safeguards. But at the end of the day, you know, as Danette said, even if it's electronic approval, the supervisor has to log in at some point and approve it. So it doesn't, like a time card doesn't solve everything. It makes it difficult for probably your law enforcement and firemen as far as punching a time card. But even punching a time card still requires supervisor approval. So I haven't seen a time card system for a number of years, but I'm not sure.
Chief Executive Gallagher.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and Commissioner Callahan. The time card issue, and we've talked about the electronic time cards and stuff, and there's a lot of complexity to the whole issue that we're talking about, because there's different pays that go along with a lot of different things that we have here. So we are looking into how we could possibly end up in an electronic submission, but as Pat alluded to, at the end of the day, the supervisors have to be checking that, and that's kind of one of the problems is that we've had is just the supervisor signing off on it after the person has submitted their time cards and stuff. So we're looking at things, what we can do to improve this. Danette and I have had conversations about it, but there's a lot of complexities due to the contracts and things that we have with time cards and stuff. So there's a lot of, it's not as quick and easy as just putting in a time card or a time clock.
Ms. Gleason.
Yeah. And Madam Chair and Commissioners, I hate to beat this to death, but it still is going to be placed on the burden. When we go to electronic time card, it's on the burden of the employee and the burden of the direct supervisor and how we do the workflow. And at the end of the day, and we have to push go to get everybody else paid, there would be times where they weren't paid. I can guarantee you that's going to happen, because as what we see today, how we have to call people for timesheets or how we have to reach out to get stuff, and the amount of hours that we spend extra collecting the right timesheets, it's very frustrating for our payroll. One payroll person right now, hopefully another one soon. It's really difficult to do payroll for 500 people. Let's particularly look at this week. We actually had to have Lucy, Karen, Kate, and Danny doing payroll because time cards weren't due till yesterday, till Tuesday. And so it doesn't matter, even if they're electronic and they come through, that will help but I can guarantee you, like Pat said, a fireman only works, so many scheduled days. So they're gonna have to know that they have to log in and get their timesheet. And it will take a lot of time and a lot of training and probably a lot of missed time periods when we go electronic. But we still are going down that path. We are looking at it. It's gonna be after we have a leave coming up in our department that'll be out for a period of weeks. And so it's just not gonna happen until next fall at least. And then we're back into our audit, so who knows? But it's not something we're just gonna drop. But when we do that, there's definitely gonna be updated items in policy 205 that relates to electronic time card. I mean, we already have a policy out there that's not fully followed all the time, but no consequences. And so we're gonna have to have consequences when we go to electronic, because we can't sit there and be pushing time through every single hour of every day, because the payroll reporting, just so everybody knows, the timekeeping part of payroll and the entry for time is a very small piece of what they do. The pension reporting takes a day, the deduction reporting takes a couple days, that month end takes days. That's just a piece of the pie, and we won't be able to continue, when we do electronic time entry, we won't be able to do payroll every single day of the week. So, sorry to beat that. I just need to make everybody aware that electronic timekeeping is not gonna be the cure of all immediately. So.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to interject this is every person in this room and the people that work for Butte-Silver Bow have a personal responsibility. And their biggest responsibility that they have when they go to work in the morning is proof that you're at work, and which is justified with your time card and your duties during the week and the day. What we used to do, I'm not beating this to death either, but I was on some large projects and was a foreman, is basically their time cards at the end of the day come through. We checked them. We had till 9 o'clock the next morning to turn them in for payroll and all that. We didn't go run them down. We'd send one of the sub-foremans down and just say, hey, you have a problem with your time card. You have to spend some time at lunch to go out and get it rectified or earlier, and we'll get it handled. So, I don't think that Butte-Silver Bow should give in to basically catering to people for something that they should be responsible for. And, we're talking electronic deals, we're talking reports and all that. It's a responsibility of the individual. And I guarantee you, and it probably has happened or you've tried it, if you don't pay them, they're sure up there seeing you and talking to you. But, I think that's the biggest thing. It's just a simple procedure. It's a mature thing. And why should Butte-Silver Bow spend more money and you have to call people to pay them for something that they're supposed to be done? Not only once from them, but also from the supervisor that goes over the time cards. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Danette, thank you. Pat, thank you. As you all know, we've been through this many a year, some here more than others, and I can only give kudos to Pat and his firm, to Danette and her team, Wendy, Karen, and this time card issue, I've been around the road a little bit too, and you're never going to fix it. It's a never-ending thing, so good luck to you. That's all I'm going to say. Pat's going to tell you the same thing. He's been through this before. So, it just happens, and, no one should go out a paycheck when they live week to week. And, the county attorney kind of can weigh in on that if she wants later in the year, but it'll all work out. It's all working fine. We had a great report tonight. Pat gave a good report. Danette gave a good report. In the years I've served here, her, Karen, Wendy, Lori, we've made progress, like I believe has been excellent. So kudos to your teams, and thank you for being here.
And I would echo Commissioner Fisher's comments, as well as I just love your auditor's report because it's so easy to read and it's pretty straightforward. It's cut and dried. This is implemented or not implemented, or it is corrected or it's not corrected. but I am so happy being on the Board of Health that we finally are implemented and corrected. I think there was something to do with software issues or something like that, but it was just like a big thorn in our side on the Health Department side, so that really made my day. And thank you, Danette, and your team. Awesome, thank you. And thank you for not giving us the 300-page version of the
Thank
Twitter. All right, thank you very much. Okay. Moving on, we will begin our communications. We have Section 2, Item 1, Communication Number 2021-299. Tristan Thomas, residing in Butte, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners to authorize Tristan Thomas to purchase the following property located at 2422 Pine Street, Butte, Montana. We are continuing to hold this, awaiting a survey. These things just take quite a bit of time, and I have not received any new updates from our land sales department. Anything on that one? We'll continue to hold that in abeyance. Item 2 is the same. We have a communication 2021-335, Michael and Kellyanne Hoven, 241 William Street, Walkerville, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to purchase vacant land currently owned by Butte-Silver. The land we are hoping to acquire includes a .06 acre parcel and a segment of another 10-acre tract. This also is awaiting a survey. It has to do with quite a bit of land that we own, and it needs quite a bit of attention, and it's still sitting in our land sales department. Communication number 2022-02, we will hold that in abeyance, by the way. Melissa Sodell, 21 Holly Lane, Butte, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to purchase a small lot that Butte-Silver currently owns. The land owned by Butte-Silver is located at 322 West Gold, parcel number 441800, where I would like to build a small garage. This is a much more recent request, and it is held in land sales for their recommendation back to the council. We'll hold that in abeyance. Communication number 2022-54, Karen Malachny, Butte-Silver Health Officer, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing for February 16, 2022, for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 21-22 budget to allow for increased expenditures of unanticipated revenue to hire an STD disease intervention specialist and provide communicable disease investigation and intervention services. We did have this meeting last Wednesday, so Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to place communication 2022-54 on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move communication 2021-54 to place it on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Motion passes. Item 5, communication number 2022-56, Dory Scrookrud, Greenway Service Director, Project Manager, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence to schedule a bid opening on February 16, 2022 for the Butte-Silver Greenway Reach, O-Trail, and Cattle Bridge. We did have this bid opening last week, so Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to place communication number 2022-56 on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to place communication 2022-56 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone care to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Motion passes. Item 6, communication number 2022-58, Eileen Joyce, Butte-Silver County Attorney, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization for the Chief Executive Gallagher to sign a grant award for the Residential Substance Abuse Treatment Program, RSAT, in our local detention facility, and to schedule a public hearing for February 16th, 2022 regarding this unanticipated revenue. We did have that public hearing last week. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to place communication number 2022-58 on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to place communication 2022-58 on file. Anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? And would anyone care to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Motion passes. Item 7, communication number 2022-61, Danette Gleason, Finance and Budget Director requesting Council of Commissioners authorization for a presentation on February 23rd, 2022 to present the fiscal year 2021 audit findings and annual financial report. We just had that this evening, so Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to place communication number 2022-61 on file.
We have a motion and a second to place communication 2022-61 on file. Any questions? Would everyone please vote? Anyone care to change their vote? Would you please record the vote?
11 yeas, 0 nay.
Motion passes. Item 8, communication number 2022-72, Mike Clegg, Deputy County Attorney, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization for a public hearing on March 2nd, 2022 to amend the fiscal year 2021-22 budget to receive grant funds from the Montana Office of Court Administrator, OCA, for the purpose of accepting the grant award of $5,000. We will hold that in abeyance until next week's regular meeting. At this time, I would call for any public comment on any public matter that is not on tonight's agenda. Seeing none. Anything else to come before this council? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to thank the council for the card we sent.
Yeah.
Condolences on my brother. Deeply appreciated. Thank you all. I'd like to wish happy birthday to Addie and Director Danette.
Oh, really? Today? Happy birthday. And Danette? Wow. You youngsters. Happy birthday to you both. Anything else? I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you all.